And we're at the point now where we're going to look at that incredible struggle that comes about when we suddenly slip into the moment of deep realization, and we know that we've still got a journey stretching ahead of us. And this is the moment when Glenn had to make some amazing changes and reforms almost.
Yeah.
Transitional moments, really, and those are what they are. So let's go from there.
Yeah. I think what is very important to realize is that just because I had that experience of going and seeing the other side, as people call it, which is actually not at all, it's right here.
Right, yeah.
It doesn't make me any more equipped than anybody else to deal with this world. And I know that too because after the initial realization and all these incredible things were happening, but of course the pain doesn't go away, the rent still needs to be paid, all the medical bills arrive, and life has to continue. So and I've noticed it a few times after that breakdown, after my 2 years of holding on mentally, I stopped searching outside of myself for answers and for strength, and realized that actually no matter what meditations I do, no matter what books I read or how much I learn, ultimately nothing changes until you go here and address you, and it goes back to who you are. So it's easy to forget that, because when the bills come in and you've got to get back to working and doing and paying things, and then I lost my car and I lost my house. I mean, I lost everything as a result of this. So you can forget very easily. You can forget very easily that the central or the core of this universe is light and love, because our apparent proof is that it's exactly the opposite. All we see is the fighting and the lack and the elbowing and the bullying and the So when you see enough of that, you begin to believe that that's how the world is. So what the biggest change I had to make was to choose every day to remember that at my core I am light and love. And therefore, that is the stance I need to come from. But it's not easy to do that. Then your heart gets broken, then a friend dies, or you lose your job, or whatever it might be, and it's not easy to remember that everything is actually in perfect divine order. And don't try and work out what that might be. That's another thing. I mean, I often say to people, if you really want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans, because we have no clue. We're so limited in our mental perception. So it's a case of surrendering every day to what is. And so you need tools to do that. And before you can surrender to what is, you need to let go of how you think things should be.
That's wonderful. And that shouldness is how we are exhausting our being.
Totally. We're striving all the time. But my life must be like this, and I want it to be like that, and this is what makes shoulds and musts, and it's that drains us immediately, because then as soon as you say my life should be like this, it's immediately not part of the more divine plan for your life. It is something that you've cooked up.
It's out of alignment.
And it's limited. It's always less than.
It is.
You can have the greatest dreams for yourself, but it'll always be less than what the universal plan is for your life. Because we all fit, there's an absolute reason why you are here, and I am here, and you are here, and you are here. The universe would not be the same if you were not here. But it's not about what you're going to do. It's about who you are. I can't stress that enough. Remembering who we are. So it kind of gets us onto the subject of life purpose. But why are we here in the first place, you see? But that's coming later. For now, I want to talk about suffering.
Let's talk about
because suffering is what we do. Listen to the word. Suffering is what we do. It's not who we are, you see.
So true, then.
So when we forget who we are, we start suffering. But I often say to people, just look at it like this. I am never unhappy because I've got one leg. Never. It doesn't even faze me. But I get very unhappy when I wish I had two. Now that is the key.
Yes.
What's the point of wishing that things were different? This is how it is. So be in it and look for the gifts. So that's the first tool I'd like to share with people.
That is a huge.
is every single thing belongs. Every event, every tragedy, every accident, every death, every loss, every trauma, along with all the good stuff, the celebrations, the births, the joys, the creations, you know, the successes, they all belong. But we've made a bit of a, we've made it difficult for ourselves because we judge half the world as bad.
That's right.
And if you look at nature for our cue, everything belongs. We need the balance. And it's not because we need to be sad so we can appreciate being happy. That's also the biggest load of nonsense I've ever heard. I mean, if you're going to tell me, oh, you've got one leg so you can appreciate having two, I'm going to give you a big zap sign, thank you. You know, it's not the truth.
No, it's not.
The truth is, in that actual apparent darkness or shadow or negativity is the gift itself.
That's it.
It does not need to be compared with something else.
I love that.
So,
Yes.
for example, the gift in anger. You know, we can get very angry. But if you look at anger, if you look at yourself when you're being angry, there's a gift in it. It's trying to do something for you. And if you listen to anger, it will give you the gift. If you don't listen to your anger, it's not going to get, it's just going to shout louder.
Exactly, like a tantruming child.
Exactly. So, for example, for me, there could be many gifts in anger, but like maybe spurring me into some kind of action, or maybe helping me to put up my boundaries,
Yes.
or maybe just protecting me somehow. You know,
That's
that.
right.
So there's a gift in it. So for me, the gifts that have come out of this, I'm still counting. 13 years later, they're still showing up. And the primary one is just to stop rushing.
Yes.
That for me is a very good gift out of this. To have deep compassion for other people who might not be as able or capable to show up in the world the way other people do. So compassion, slowing down, and also losing my identity with my body as who I am.
That's right.
That's a big one for most of us.
And especially coming from a background, how perfect was it that the universe gave you a background that your body and your being was the pivotal thing?
It
And
was
way
the
of-
center of my life. It was my money earner. It was
Yes,
because that's who I thought I was.
that's right.
Mm.
That was, hello, this is me, and now this is not me, and
And
now
it's-
who am I?
Yeah, and that's a question that is not so easy to answer.
No, it's
Who
not.
am I? It takes most of our lives to work out who we are,
Yes.
really. So, and also not aligning with that truth of who I am also creates suffering.
Yes.
I have many people coming to see me who are going through a midlife career change or even the end of their sort of working years and they want to change. And they look at me and they say, Glenn, I've been a lawyer for 30 years and I'm miserable. I don't know why I did that. I don't know who I am.
30 years. Oh.
You know? And I just think, oh man. So the conversation always goes back to then, so who are you really? When you're not playing a role, when you're not being a mother or a father or a wife or a husband or a son or when you're not being a worker or a CEO or a healer or a musician, when you're not doing any of that, who are you? And that will also help eliminate the suffering, because when you know who you are, you will get a stronger sense of where to flow to next
Yes.
in your life. If you know who you are, you know what you like and what you don't like. You know what makes your sap rise and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And if we really want a guide as to who we are, just look back over your life and remember all the times when your sap rose in your body, when you were feeling lighter, when you were feeling maybe inspired even, or just a deep, contented bliss or joy, when time seemed to disappear. In those moments, that's who you are. That you can sort of look back and make a pattern and just see, oh, these are all the moments. Who was I being in those moments? That's who we are. We're very fortunate to have that as our guide.
That's so beautiful.
That joy and bliss are actually the tools that the universe gave us to find out who we are.
And they come up even when we are in our places of devastation.
Absolutely.
They're always there.
Absolutely. I had a very challenging experience a few months ago when a very, very close and dear friend of mine died tragically. And in the moment when I was crying, because my body is going to miss him, you know, and I was crying and I was just feeling sad for his family and everyone and the repercussions and the loss and everything. But in my deepest core, I suddenly had this realization that this is why we lose people.
Yes.
To remind us of this
Love.
thing called love.
Yes.
So in my inside, I wasn't fighting his loss. I wasn't angry about it. I was allowing the sadness to arise within me and let my body experience this sadness.
That's beautiful.
Because I know that I'm not sad.
Yes.
You see, that's another thing. We tend to identify with the feeling and say, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm strong, or, I'm creative, I'm miserable.
Beautiful, I'm not.
Yes. Whereas in fact, those feelings are not who we are. It's just something that is arising in you temporarily. And when you remember who you are, then you know that and you go, okay, this is me being very sad and mourning a friend. And you cry. But you cry from a different place.
Yes, it is.
It's a place of strength. It's a place of deep inner knowing.
Almost.
It's an honoring and a gratitude, actually.
Yes, it is.
That you are able to feel this deeply in the first place.
Exactly.
As weird as that might sound, as painful as it is, when you know it, it's freeing. It doesn't mean your life's going to get easier.
It's not going to mean that. And one of the things that I love to say to people too is that we are here to experience this life.
Yeah.
And that's why we have this sensory being, this feeling and senses, taste, touch, perceptions, and the ability to feel and integrate touch and connect with this life, because we are to feel it.
We are here to feel.
Must feel
every aspect of it.
Every tiny aspect. And to breathe, smell it, taste it every way we can. And all the experiencing of it is the opportunity. In every experience, there's this amazing opportunity that's just sitting there like a gem that's just waiting for us to see it.
Yeah.
I love that.
And to remind us who we are. That's how, there's this beautiful, I have a lovely teacher called Ajashanti, and he talks about grace, moments of grace. And we tend to experience grace or expect grace to be moments where we have, it's basically unearned merit. That is the true meaning of the word grace, unearned merit.
Beautiful.
Where you are gifted with a revelation, an insight, a leap in self-awareness, whatever it might be. But he says the part we forget is that grace is very often accompanied by a very uncomfortable feeling, an unknown, and something that can be quite painful initially. But if we can see the gift in those, then that's the grace. The grace is buried inside us. And it has to be like that. Otherwise we wouldn't pay any attention to it.
Exactly. And that's the point, that we need to feel so that we can pay attention. Because otherwise we're just going to be neutral.
Yeah, but then there'll be nothing. We won't be anything. I say to people, this is going to sound a bit strange, but if you imagine, like, you have a vanilla cake and you have a chocolate cake, okay? The difference is the cocoa.
Yes.
But if you taste cocoa on its own, it is ghastly. It dries up your mouth and it's yuck, and it's like, this is awful. But you blend it into the rest of the ingredients and it becomes a chocolate cake. So I see pain and trauma and loss as the cocoa of life.
Yeah, that is awesome.
And
now I want chocolate cake.
Because it really does give it its richness, and that's the key. It needs to be baked and it needs to be mixed in with all the love and laughter and self-awareness. But if it wasn't for the cocoa, which on its own is bitter and awful, it wouldn't be a chocolate cake. It would just be a plain old ordinary cake. So
that is so.
So I love cocoa, by the way. I mean, not on its own. I like chocolate things.
Well, we like anything chocolate, you see. So
but you see, it comes with it needs to be rich.
It's the sweetness of life.
It's the sweetness of life. So in a nutshell, for me then, to eliminate suffering is to realize that there is cocoa in life.
Yes.
And to say, okay, here's an opportunity. Let's see how rich I can make this pudding.
And how I can blend this, whatever is, into my life.
How can I incorporate it? Instead of resisting, the minute we resist, then suffering arises instantly. Instantly.
Yes, and the ways that we resist. We should just talk momentarily about that, because the ways we resist is by deflecting, and this resisting and this
and othering.
All the otherings. Yes.
Like it's that person made me do this and that. Can I talk a bit about that?
Yeah, you must.
What I have realized is that it gets reduced to something that I call the 4 wars. The first war starts in the mind when you judge something as bad.
Yes.
Like cocoa is bad.
Yes.
It's bitter, it's painful, therefore it is bad.
There you go.
So that's the initial beginning of the four wars. The mind judges, but of course life teaches us that certain things are bad. So we're quite indignant and say, no, but being lazy is bad, or being sad is bad.
We're being taught that.
We're being taught, exactly. And we also get shown it every day. It's like proof. Your mind goes, you see, you did reach out to that person and you got hurt. So it is true. And so we take it on as true, but actually it's a judgment.
Yes.
All right? So the initial thought is being lazy is bad.
Yeah.
So now I've got this thing, laziness is bad. But it's very soon I catch myself being a bit lazy. My mind catches me being a bit lazy now and again. Now I'm bad because I'm a bit lazy. So now the war gets transferred from the mind to the self.
Yes.
Now I become bad.
Oh.
And after a while you get sick of that, so now you blame it on the other. Oh no, but I'm looking after you all the time. You make me lazy because I have to work so hard.
And I'm
exhausted. And now you are bad because you are making me be tired.
That's it.
So now the war gets transferred to the other. From the mind to the self, now it's the other. And then finally you end up going, that also doesn't seem to satisfy us, because now we look around and we say, my life is bad.
Oh my
now
God.
the world is bad. Now,
yes.
So then the war gets transferred to reality.
That's
now
it.
this is just a
And we can see nothing that is
and we can see nothing else, exactly, because of those four wars. You see, it starts with the judgment, to the self, to the other, and then it's the world, or this company, or this town, or this country is bad because of that initial judgment. But thankfully, we only have to work on one place to end that war, and that's the judgment. If we can flip that switch and see the gift in it, we will no longer judge it as bad. Then all the other wars just dissolve. That's the only way you can truly have compassion for another.
Now, please, can that be heard?
Is if
please,
you,
can you hear that?
if you
whole
can,
wide world.
if you can have compassion for yourself.
Because that's the piece that's going to hold us
That,
together.
yeah, that's it. That's
Release
all we need
your
to do.
judgment.
We could release the judgment.
Open your heart.
Yeah.
And feel love.
Yeah. And the way to release judgment is to find the gift in the apparently bad thing.
Yes.
I mean, when there's a very practical story I heard of a friend of mine who was an engineer. Our new government took over, and apparently they dissed all the plans that Eskom had for the future. And said, you know, because they had a plan, a 25-year plan to supply power for the country. But they said, no, we don't need those. So many people go, oh, that's a terrible thing. How bad? No, we would have had power. But what does it spawn? It's spawned new renewable energy. We've got windmills going up. We've got solar farms going up. We've got all these incredible inventions because of this apparently bad thing.
Yes.
Where our, you know, where Eskom decided to toss all the old plans.
And we were stuck in lack.
And we were stuck in lack, precisely. So, yeah, there is, the one thing I know is that there's a gift in everything.
Yes, yes.
Everything, especially the more uncomfortable and more painful, the greater the treasure.
That's
Now this is proof of that.
And this is proof, and so are you. I
you.
love you. Oh, let's
Thank
go
you.
home. Beautiful. Another little break, probably for chocolate cake.
No, we're going to get cake today. Is
So-
there little home industries here?
There is.